Welcome back, Hive Mind. This is Shalazar with Hive Mind Gaming coming at you with another Kickstarter review. Today we're going to take a look at Freedom 5, which is a board game brought to us by the creators of the Sentinels of the Multiverse card game. They are looking at making a actual board game for that universe. So let's get into it. Alright, so if we go down the page on their Kickstarter, there's actually a button here for Tabletopia, which is similar to Tabletop Simulator, if you know what that is. Basically, it's a program that game designers can go on there, or even you, if you have the gumption to do it, go on there and create your own board game. A lot of times, a lot of players will go on there and create their favorite board games so that they have a digital way of playing their board games when their friends are so far away, especially in this pandemic going on here. So with this, what we can do is we can actually just click this button, which will open up a new browser, and then you sign in, and it will give you the chance to pay for a subscription or get a free trial. The free trial doesn't require any kind of credit card or anything, and you can add up to 2 games for that free trial. So currently I am just doing the Freedom 5. Looks like the creators have went ahead and made a game for that. So let's go ahead and get into it. Freedom 5, a Sentinels Comics board game, is designed to pit your heroes versus a mastermind and his villains and henchmen. So he's got an overall plan to take over the world or whatever it is that he is trying to get done, and you're the heroes trying to stop them. It is a 1 to 5 player co-op board game. This is a work in progress, keep in mind, so if you do play this on Tabletopia, keep in mind that the components and rules, I guess, are all work in progress, so things could and probably will change as things go on. The scenario affects how setup works, and each scenario is a actual comic book, which I think is really neat. It's designed to be based off of their comic series. They started this Kickstarter a long time ago with Sentinels of the Multiverse card game, which is a fun game. I've played it from the very start, had a friend introduce me to it, and I ended up picking it up and have played it ever since. It's a fantastic game in my opinion. This board game really excites me. The fact that I can see the miniatures of these beloved characters that I've been playing with for years now is just, it's exciting. Alright, so let's get into the rule set. What we're going to do is we're going to just look at what the basic rules are going to be for this game. This is not going to be a playthrough, so just keep that in mind. So setup is going to be based off of simple setup rules, and then on top of that, your rules or your scenario from your comic book is going to have any additional setup rules that you may have. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put out our giant map here. The map is going to have all these little sections of the city that we're trying to protect. Alright, and then we're going to put out the HQ board, which is this down here. This is going to be the board that we use to place all of our tokens and our different decks of cards. Then we're going to place 1 meeple on every single location. Now the color of the meeple is important. So whatever color the location has, that's the color meeple we put in. So this one's yellow, so we put a yellow meeple. This one's blue, so a blue meeple. Green meeple. Red meeple, etc. So each scenario is going to have different information. So each scenario is going to have your meeples piled up in different locations. And your villains are going to be in different locations as well, and because it's based on whatever the mastermind is actually trying to get done. Next, we're going to set up our HQ board. So our HQ board was where we're going to place our token types. So we've got our anarchy tokens, we've got our scheme tokens, we've got our bystander tokens, and then we're going to shuffle and place our scheme, anarchy, bystander, justice, and special decks. Then we're also going to take our 3 mastermind tokens and place them on our mastermind track depending on the scenario. The scenario will dictate where we place that, and that will come into play as to where his special things happen. Next, we select and prepare our heroes. Depending on how many players are in the game, depends on how many heroes you're going to play with. You can play up to 5. So once you choose the hero that you're playing with, you collect all the stuff that you need for that hero. So each hero is going to have a dashboard, which is going to be a board specifically for that hero. Then they're going to have, on that board is going to tell you exactly what you pull for that hero. It's also going to tell you where that hero will start on the board. So, for instance, Tachyon could either start in Freedom Tower, which is location 19 on the game board, or AECANE Rubendell Laboratories, which is location number 9 on the game board. Then you will have a card here that's going to have your secret identity on one side and your superhero identity on the second side. It will show you right here in the corner which is which. So if you see Legacy in his superhero suit, then you'll see that that's your superhero side. And if it's Clark Kent in the corner, then you know it's your secret identity. Each side will have a special ability that you can use once during your turn, and you can only use it while in that identity. So she can only use this ability while in her secret identity, and she can only use this ability while in her superhero suit. Alright, each hero will also have a set of tokens. These are your action tokens. Each hero also has 3 personal tests that they can complete. They also have a deck of ability cards. These are only abilities that can be used while in your superhero persona. So keep that in mind. You can only play these cards while in your superhero persona. Next, we've got the dashboard, which is going to be your stats here are going to be mind, and it's green, red is body, blue is spirit, and tech is yellow. Now, they're going to be different for each hero, obviously, because everyone's going to have their own abilities and stats. And basically, this is what you're going to be rolling off of, and it's very important when you're rolling dice that you're rolling the specific color that is attached to that stat. That way you know if you succeed or fail. Each hero will have a list of actions that they could perform while in their different personas. If it has the Clark Kent symbol off to the side, it means they can only use it while in their secret identity. If it has the Legacy in his super suit symbol, then it means you can only use it while in your superhero persona. If it's one of these icons where it has both the Clark Kent and the superhero persona, then that means you can use it in either. In any case, if it shows one of these symbols, that means you have to spend a token and exhaust an action to actually use that ability. If it does not, if something does not have a token, like for instance, a lot of the ability cards don't have tokens on them, that means that it does not take an action token to actually perform it, and it is a free action. similar to this down here. If it's a free action, you can use as many free actions during your turn that you want. The last thing that you come with is a model for your hero. Next, you're going to choose game mode. Should you choose the campaign mode, you're going to start from episode 1 or book 1, comic book number 1, and then you're going to go through the campaign. Decisions that you make will dictate what happens to your heroes throughout the course of the campaign. So if you make the wrong decision and you don't save the bystander, then that could retroactively affect the next scenario. So you definitely want to make sure that you're making the right decisions when running the campaign. Should you just do a free play, at that point you can choose any comic book and just run it as a one-shot. Next, determine first player. Now, the players choose who the first player is with one condition. If Legacy is on the team, he is automatically the leader, or he chooses who goes first. So he doesn't have to choose. He doesn't have to go first if he's on the team, but he's the sole person that makes that decision. And last but not least, perform scenario setup as described in the comic book. So that's the last thing you do for setup. Once that's done, you start to play. Now let's get into some of the game rules more specifically. The game is played over the course of several rounds. Each round is one turn per player. The player turn consists of 3 phases: the private life phase, the hero phase, and the villain phase. So let's take a look at the private life phase. The private life phase is basically your secret identity. So your secret identity, at the beginning of your turn, you flip over your secret identity card to show that it is your secret identity. At any point, you can use this secret identity ability as a free action. And then you can use any actions over here that coincide with any token that shows the Clark Kent token. So the private life token. Or any token that shows a combination. At any point during the private life phase, when you're done spending actions on your private life, you can flip your private life card and become a superhero. Once you flip this card and become the superhero, you start your hero phase. Now, before we get into the hero phase, there's one more thing I would like to point out when it comes to the private life phase. If you're in the private life phase and you choose not to switch to the hero phase, you won't get attacked during the villain phase. Plus, the downside of that is you can't participate in any team-up attacks, which we're going to go over both of those situations in just a bit. Now, let's take a look at the hero phase. So once you move into the hero phase, at this point, you can now use the hero ability down here. You can use any hero actions that require the Legacy and his super suit token, or any combination of the two. And you can also use ability cards. It's the only time you can use your ability card. Whether you're in the hero phase or the private life phase, you have a list of actions here. Now, there is one action that I would like to stop and take a look at, and that's the attack action, because it's pretty important. Now, keep in mind, all of these actions are different depending on the hero. They're kind of the same actions. They just have a special twist or flavor to them based on the hero that's doing the action. Keep that in mind, because it keeps it more thematic per the hero that's using the ability. That's why there's just not one master list of actions. Each action, or each hero has their own set of actions that they can perform. Now, the attack action is pretty much the same on everybody, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to make an attack action on someone who's in your zone, and when you do that, there are three types of three types of bad guys or enemies. There's the henchmen, there's villains, and there's the mastermind. So the henchman is the little meeples that are on the board. Now the henchmen are the lowliest of followers to the mastermind. Depending on the color of the henchman depends on which stat you're going to use to try to defeat them. So if they're a green henchman, you're going to roll 1 green die per green henchman, 1 red die per red henchman, blue for blue, and yellow for yellow. To succeed at a roll, you have to roll equal to or higher than your stat, so it then becomes a success. For every success, you remove 1 henchman from the board. Now, when it comes to villains and masterminds, you cannot attack them unless all henchmen are defeated in the zone that they are in. And to attack, we have to discard an ability card based on whatever color the villain or mastermind is. So if it's a red mastermind, we have to discard a red ability card to be able to attack. Now, any other heroes in that zone can choose to join in and do a team-up attack with you. And for them to do that, they also have to discard a red, in the same example, they have to discard a red ability card to be able to attack. Going with that same example, they all discard a red ability card, and then the acting player chooses which hero attacks first. Now, this is very important because some abilities could affect certain things. So the first hero will then roll as many dice as shown on the ability card that was discarded. And then for every success, and of course it's based off of whatever color you're rolling. So in our example, rolling off of red, so everyone would be rolling off their body. So for every success on their roll, it does 1 damage to the villain. Now, there are certain things that the villain can do that will help them absorb damage. That's more advanced rules, which we're not really going to get into much here, but we're just wanting to do the basic overture of the rules here. So when it comes to attacking, once all heroes have attacked, if the villain, whether the villain was defeated or not, the villain then immediately counterattacks. This is not part of the villain phase. This is still in the hero phase. The villain counterattacks. It attacks all heroes that attacked it. So for instance, and this is whether it's defeated or not, this is why it's very important on who goes first. Because if your heavy hitter goes first and takes out the villain with the first attack, then he's the only one that gets counterattacked. But if all 3 heroes attack and the final one takes out the villain, then all 3 of them get attacked. Most masterminds will more than likely have special rules that go along with what happens when they're attacked. So if you defeat a villain, then they are removed from the game. They are no longer participating in the game, but their meeples are still, because there's one villain per color. So there's going to be a green, every game is going to have a green villain, a red villain, a blue villain, and a yellow villain. They're the ones that are summoning the henchmen. If you defeat one of the villains, their meeples still show up, their henchmen still show up for that color, but now they're much weaker. So now when you take an attack action to defeat a henchman of a color where the villain is defeated, you don't have to roll any dice. You automatically defeat them. They can still attack you and do the same amount of damage, as normal, but to defeat them, it's much easier once the villain's defeated. If you are in a zone that has no henchmen in it, you can take the token interaction action, and that allows you to interact with each individual token. And the 3 types of tokens are going to be your mastermind tokens. And if you're in a zone and you want to interact with a mastermind token, you just flip it and then you see the number on here and you look in the scenario and it tells you what mastermind event happens. Each scenario is going to have its own list of these so that you can check and see, and it's going to be random. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's also going to add replayability to each game because different things are going to happen every time you play it. Anarchy tokens are going to be the same color as the zone that they're in, so red for red, green for green, etc. When you interact with an anarchy token, you're going to come over here and you're going to draw a card that is related to that color. And last but not least is the bystander token. Now, once you interact with a bystander token, you're going to draw a bystander card. Most of the time it's good. There are some bad ones, but most of the time it's good. And once you have so many points in your bystander cards, you can trade those in for a special, and the specials where a lot of good stuff can happen as well. And once you've spent all your action tokens, or just don't want to spend any more action tokens, you can end your turn, which immediately puts us into the villain phase. So as mentioned before, we do have the Mastermind, which is Baron Blade. He is a yellow affinity, where Fright Train is red affinity, Glamour is blue affinity, and Ambuscade is green affinity. Now, once you're in the villain phase, the heroes will take 1 damage for every henchman in the zone that they're in. Now, once a hero takes damage, what you're going to do is you're going to come over to this bag and you're going to draw a token. And when you flip that token, this token is going to tell you what negative thing happens to you. So what you're going to do on this is place an action token on this damage. So that basically means it's going to lock one of your actions. So you have 5 action tokens. You're going to place one of your action tokens, I would say put it underneath. That way you know that it's locked on there. And that way you take a permanent damage where you lose that ability. Now, at any time you can use one of your actions in later turns to heal that damage. There are other things like, oh, that's a ×2, ouch. Here we go. Here's another one. You cannot use yellow power cards. So when you have your hand of cards, you can't use any that have the yellow ones, meaning you can't attack Baron Blade or any yellow meeples with any of those action cards. You can still attack them with an attack action, but villains and masterminds you wouldn't be able to attack with that color. Next, in the villain phase, you go to the scenario book and you follow the step-by-step outline of what the AI is for each individual villain turn. It will outline it step by step. You just follow that, and then once that's done, then play progresses to the player to your left, and it keeps going until victory conditions are met or defeat conditions are met. Another thing that I really love about this game is they really give it a feel of a comic book. So when you come over here to the scenario book, and you start playing, you do the intro, it has its little storyline here. You've got the scenario set up that gives you all the extra stuff, and then the setup continues. Once you get that all set up, you even have a little bit of comic strip here. You take it and you flip this over and you come here. Now this is going to give you more comic strip stuff, and then it's going to give you your villain phase effect. So when it says draw 2 ability cards, that's telling you that your hero, that's how you replenish your hand. You also draw a scheme card and perform all steps and events on that card. Now, here are the actual special rules for this chapter, because this is chapter 1. It's important to read up here, chapter 1. And then this is when you're using the mastermind tokens. When you draw your mastermind tokens, these are the effects that you get. So here's the cool part that I really love about this game. If you go down to the bottom of chapter 1, you go down to the bottom here, and you see the stop. It says do not advance until you have defeated 2 villains or the mastermind track reaches number 5. Now once you do that, then you flip this over and you move it over to the side here. So now you're in chapter 2. So now the villain phase effects change. So things happen in the villain's phase. The special rules change. And also, so even as you interact with mastermind tokens, those things change as well. So the story constantly is evolving based on what you're actually doing within the storyline. And then, if you see down here, do not advance until you have defeated 3 villains or the mastermind track reaches 8. So once you do that, you move to chapter 3, A Terrible Legacy. And then again, the villain phase changes, all these special rules and all of the mastermind tokens change. And then you go down here and it says do not advance until Baron Blade is defeated or the heroes attack and fail. And then here's where you decide on what happened. If it was victorious, then you open reward packet number 1. If you're defeated, then each hero begins your next adventure with 1 damage token. And if you completed the side quest computer glitch, then you also get this reward. So lots of different things can happen, especially if you're playing campaign. Story continues to evolve, and your characters either get better or get worse depending on how you did that last scenario. But if you just did a one shot, then you ignore this part and you go on and play another one if you want. All right, so that's it for the basic rule set for Freedom 5, the Sentinel's comic book board game. Now there are other things that coincide with this game, with these rules, that make them a little more in depth. We just went over the basic top layer of the rules. I mean, it gets really involved when it comes to when should you attack, when shouldn't you, what should you interact with, and what you shouldn't interact with, things like that. It's very strategy oriented when trying to figure out which champions or heroes you should use to attack which villains or henchmen for that matter, because each location's going to have their own strengths and weaknesses. I mean, there's an overflow system where if you get too many henchmen in one zone, they start overflowing to their adjacent zones. So you don't want that to happen. So you got to keep working to get the minions down, plus dealing with the mastermind's shenanigans, things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that's involved in this game. It looks like it's a lot of fun. I like to jump in head first and play it a few times to get my feet wet, see how it actually plays, because it looks great on paper. The rule set looks really simple, but yet involved, so to keep your attention if you're a more advanced player when it comes to board games, that kind of thing. So really excited about this one. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. If you like the content and you want to see more, hit the like button and join the Hive by hitting the subscribe button. Every one of those likes and subscribes mean a lot and help me out tremendously, so I appreciate every single one of them. Other than that, we'll see you on a video soon.